This is The Medical Show with Scott Johnson and Dr. Jerry Tolbert.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of The Medical Show. I'm Scott Johnson with Dr. Jerry Tolbert. Jerry, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
It's good to be here, man. Been a busy week for both of us, I think. It felt like we just did this, if this is what I'm saying.
It has been the fastest week to pass by, but also it feels like it has been like the longest week ever.
Yeah, why is it like that? I don't understand time. Time is dumb. I'd like to redo time. I don't know. I know it's a complicated thing, and time is really just is what we call it. And it's a big scientific mystery in a lot of ways. But can we just change it so we have like 8 days a week and 48-hour days or something like that? That'd be great.
If we could get everybody to agree, sure.
I'm sure if we have the right amount of international willpower, we can do anything. Well, anyway, we're going to get right to it. We are here on a weekly basis for season 1 of this show to talk about some of the common medical questions, health questions, myths, and that sort of thing that float in and around the world of medicine. Dr. Tolbert, of course, a 20-year veteran of family medicine, and I know nothing. So that's what I bring to the table. And I'm going to go ahead and start us with a phone call we got. It's actually not technically a phone call. It's a text, but they converted it to an AI voice. Just know that as we play it. And it may not even be the female you think it is in the voice. It could be a dude. I don't know. People can kind of choose whatever they want. But I think it's a pretty good question, and I'm going to go ahead and play it now. So here it is. Check it out.
Hi, guys. Love this show and love the info coming out of it. Please keep it up. I had a question about sugar and soda. Is it actually healthier to drink zero versions of sodas or the full sugar versions? I assume moderate use of either choice is preferred over lots of drinking them, but on the whole, which is actually the less harmful to your health?
All right. One's got corn syrup up the wazoo, and the other one's got artificial sweeteners that fake you into thinking you're getting something sweet. So I hear this both ways all the time. Just from my own perspective, I like me a Coke Zero here and there, not all the time, but sometimes. And I will take it over the sugar one because me and sugar don't get along these days. But there is that larger question. Is it actually healthier or less healthy to drink a zero or diet version of a drink like that?
Like all things, it's complicated. I got to say that. That's the opener for everything these days. Yeah. But in general, it goes back to that definition of healthy thing we were talking about. If you're asking, is it safe to drink either one? Yes. In moderation, both of them are going to be okay. But if you have problems with carbohydrates, if you have type 2 diabetes, or if you have other issues with too much carbohydrate coming in, then one of the biggest things that you want to avoid is straight up sugars. And whether that's coming from high fructose corn syrup or from sugar, sweetened beverages, because you have Mexican Coke, quote unquote, that has sugar in it, true cane sugar. The biggest concern with those is that that's a lot of carbohydrate in a small amount of drink. And so if you're counting your carbohydrates or watching your carbohydrates, then yeah, you don't want to be drinking those either. As far as the diet drinks, the concerns around the artificial sweeteners, things like aspartame and saccharin, they were very overblown in the 1970s because we didn't have enough information yet. We didn't have enough data to say, yeah, this is dangerous. No, it's not. And so a couple of studies that were poorly done got hyped up. This may sound familiar.
Yeah.
A couple of poorly done studies got hyped up and people got really afraid. And that's why Tab was taken off the market because of the concern about the artificial sweeteners.
Oh, I wondered about that because Tab was like the poster child for here's your diet sexy lady drink. And
exactly.
It's suddenly poof. Like for a huge chunk of my childhood, I would see Tab ads and then one day I didn't see any. It's like over.
And that was because of aspartame. There was a study that came out that said aspartame can increase the risk of cancers. And while there are certain dangers, that study was just so poorly done. And the truth is that the amount of aspartame it would take to induce the cancers that they were seeing in rats, which is a whole separate issue because humans aren't rats. We don't have all the same enzymes.
Sure.
But the amount of aspartame that it would take to maintain, like the amount of intake of aspartame it would take to cause those cancers would be enough to bury us under the weight. We would die under the force of the aspartame hitting us before we drank enough to actually develop cancer.
I have not heard that comparison. That's wild. That's a lot of heavy. I assume this is like a powder form thing.
It is a powder. It basically, it's like the consistency of powdered sugar.
So you would have to have enough to actually not crush you, but land on you and murder you.
Close enough, yeah.
That's
enough.
wild to me. So why are people? Is it just that these things hang around forever and it's just hard to shake the stigmas?
It's the mythology. It's the this is the I guess the trying to think of the best way to describe it. We have all of these words that we are afraid of, things like toxin and chemical, and those are scientific words in some cases, and in other cases they are words that we want to make sure that we are taking back, if you were, at this point. Because a toxin is something that is causing a negative outcome because of cellular level damage. And so, yes, there are things that are toxic at certain levels, but to call something a toxin just by itself, it's not actually accurate. The difference between a medicine and a poison is the dose. You'll hear me say that all the time because it's incredibly important for us to pay attention to. Yeah. And so there are certain things like water that at high levels can dilute out your bloodstream and cause hyponatremia, which is low sodium, effectively low sodium. And that can cause your brain to swell and you can die. So too much water can absolutely do that. That doesn't mean that every bit of water or drinking, a gallon of water a day is necessarily going to do that to every person, because it depends on a bunch of other factors. And so with things like these artificial sweeteners, too much of them is absolutely not great for us. One of the biggest things that it does is that it is much, much sweeter than sugar. And so when it hits our tongue, it sends that brain signal that says, hey, this is very, very sweet. I like it. I feel better. So now when we eat sugar, it doesn't seem as sweet. So we have to eat more to get the same brain signal that tells us that we're getting enough sweetness.
Oh, can confirm on this front. Like I moved to, zero sugar sodas after a pre-diabetic diagnosis. And I went, I'll be cutting that out. And I wasn't drinking that much anyway, but I moved to that. And there was a shift in what my body got confused. It was a feeling of, I don't know how to say dysmorphia, but it was like I would drink that artificial sweetened Coke and go, that was great, but I need more. Like there was a feeling I just needed more. And I would usually supplant that with like bread or something else that kind of would solve that issue. I don't know how you avoid that. How do you avoid that? Just self-control, and that's as good as we got?
All things in moderation. I mean, just understanding that it's okay to have a little bit of something, but too much of something can be a bad thing. And so having 5 Diet Cokes a day versus having 1 Diet Coke a day versus 1 Diet Coke every couple days, you're going to have a dose-dependent effect. And again, it still takes 30 Diet Cokes a day for it to really start causing trouble. One other caveat that I just happened to think of as we were talking about this.
Just trying to think somebody drinking 30 Cokes a day. That just seems insane to me.
It happens, though. I mean, it's one of those things where if you think about it, I had family members that would drink 2 liters of sugar-sweetened beverages, multiple 2 liters in a day. I had one uncle who would drink 2 liters of Mountain Dew.
Dang.
And that was how he hydrated during the day. And, of course, this was in the 80s when we didn't know any better, quote unquote.
Right.
So there was a big shift, as we entered the new millennium into trying to be more healthy with what we did in terms of drinks. And so paying attention to it. Can sizes in some cases got smaller. Those mini cans that are available now, those are really great because you can have the sweetness, you can have the drink, and then you can transition over to something like water to finish out the rest of the fluid intake that you need for the day.
Sure.
So, but the other concern with the artificial sweeteners that I want to mention, because it is valid and it is something we want to be careful of, and this is something that people really need to know, if the artificial sweeteners are left in heat, especially above about 120 degrees for a long period of time, they can actually degrade. The chemical structure will degrade into essentially formaldehyde.
Oh, I've heard this before, but it has to be that high temperature. It can't be like if it's 80 in your garage for a week, you don't have to throw all your soda out or something.
Yeah, you're probably going to be okay, but you want to taste it. If it starts to taste bitter, that's a good sign that part of the sweetener is starting to degrade into formaldehyde, and you definitely don't want to drink it.
Yeah, I would assume formaldehyde is only good for preserving dead things. And
for the most part, it has other uses like furniture making and stuff, but you definitely don't want to be ingesting it on a regular basis.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. All right. Well, I hope we've demystified this a little bit for our anonymous caller, writer, person, listener, we'll call them. And speaking of toxins, we should do a whole episode on what toxins really are. You know what I mean? It
would be a short episode, but yeah.
That'll give you a hint, everybody, about how we feel about toxins. All right. Let's get to the big topic this week, which is dietary supplements. Constantly, we are being told, various sources, be it television or the internet mostly now, if you spend any time on Instagram, you will get many, many ads telling you that if you just take 2 of these a day, you're going to improve your health. And they usually have no FDA approval. They usually have to state something sort of like that. And it seems like everybody I know is taking some sort of supplemental pills for their daily dietary needs. And some of them are doctor prescribed. Like, for example, my doctor, after a blood panel, showed that I had really low vitamin B plus, or B12. Thank you. B plus. That's mostly just my grade average. And that's exaggerating. But B12, and I was low in vitamin D. And part of that was I'd gotten rid of dairy, basically. And so my sources of D had just dried up a little bit. And so she says, here's what I want you to do. And she put me on a certain regimen of B12 and D to get me back in a good range. We went and did tests as a follow-up 6 months later. They came back great. And then the encouragement was, all right, here are foods that are high in these vitamins that you were lacking. And since then, I've had zero issues with it. It was just kind of a boost to like get me back to a normal place. We're not necessarily talking about vitamins here, are we? We're talking about like, hey, if you take 3 of these, and they just give them weird names like this came from a flower in Indonesia, and if you take that every morning, you'll have more energy by the evening. And this is like zero science shown, zero studies shown. I just have to assume most of this stuff is crap because that's just the way my brain works. I look at it and go, sure, whatever. How much of these things are real? And do we even need it? If you've got a balanced diet and you're eating relatively a balanced diet, why do we need these things? Or do we?
So
it's a lot of questions all at once there. Sorry.
It is. And with the complexity of what we're talking about, I'm going to kind of start at the beginning. So essentially, when we talk about supplements, we are talking about anything that is used as dietary intake to supplement and to enhance your dietary intake of certain nutrients, whether that's vitamins or minerals or other compounds that you're not getting. That includes a lot of the stuff that you're talking about in the second half of the question you had there, like the flower extracts and the roots and other things, but it also includes vitamins. Vitamins are absolutely part of that discussion because those are not the same type most of the time. They're not going to be the same type of vitamins that we're absorbing from our food, which means that we absorb them slightly differently or sometimes less so than we would from actual food.
Are there some that we don't digest at all because our stomach acid just rips them a new one and we never even gets to where it needs to?
So that the stomach acid ripping them apart is digestion. So that is exactly what's happening whenever we take anything, but how it's absorbed through the lining of the intestine or the stomach or the small intestine, large intestine, that is what determines how it gets into the bloodstream and where it goes and how it's used. Right. So that is actually incredibly important. And there are going to be several things that fall into that category of things we do need to have. There are lots of different amino acids that we cannot manufacture ourselves out of other components, so we have to eat some of those. We have to have certain vitamins and minerals that are coming from our food. That includes the B vitamins that you mentioned, as well as other water-soluble vitamins, like vitamin C. It also includes fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, and those are coming from food as well and can be sold as supplements. That includes things like electrolytes and other minerals, so calcium and potassium, and there are multiple different tiny amounts of trace minerals that we need. So some of the heavy metals like molybdenum, those are okay in very small trace amounts. In fact, we need some of those, but we don't need tons and tons of that stuff.
All right.
So in terms of supplements, those are things that are supplementing our diet to get us some other dietary intake, and they are not designed to cure a disease or treat a disease. They can't say that.
Or prevent one or any of that.
Or prevent. Now the language gets a little fuzzy there. So let's actually talk about that. Let's start from there too. So the FDA, you mentioned the FDA regulating these things. They are regulated, but not in the same way. And the regulation basically involves inspecting the manufacturing facilities, and essentially when we talk about medications that are drugs or medications that are created for prescription drug use, those have to be proven safe before they can be used. They are assumed to be dangerous and they have to be proven safe.
Okay.
Based on the law, the way that it was written back in the 1990s, the FDA has a flipped way of looking at supplements. Supplements are safe until they are proven dangerous.
Okay.
So that means that anybody that brings a supplement to market can just sell it until somebody gets hurt or dies because of taking it.
Okay. So
that is the regulation.
But how do they see? That's a wild concept because if I come out and say, "Hey, I've got this thing. It comes in a flask like this, and inside there is the feathers of a dead goose and 4 ounces of isopropyl alcohol, and this alone is going to cause you, dear customer, like total snake salesman here, but you're going to take this thing twice a day, and in a month, you'll have lost 40 pounds."
It is going. You have to say it exactly that way. That's exactly right.
Now, if I say that, and then 100 people take it, but one of them dies like the first week from this, what happens then? Can they keep selling this? Do they have to stop?
No, the FDA will crack down on it. They will say that it cannot be sold. And the problem is that there's, just like with the regular medications or prescription medications, there's what's called an adverse event reporting system. And so the problem is it's not used the same way, because most people, if they're taking supplements, they don't realize if the supplement's causing an adverse event, so they're not going to self-report, but it requires self-reporting for that system to actually work.
I see.
So it's a very complex thing to get information that tells us whether or not a supplement is actually causing harm. It's really easy to figure out if it causes benefit. We can do a randomized controlled trial. We pit it against doing nothing, and we see if it makes the change that somebody's claiming that it makes. So half the group gets something that looks like that in every way, shape, and form, except it doesn't contain the main ingredient. The other half gets the main ingredient. You give it to both of them over the course of a certain period of time. You measure the effect of what you're expecting to see happen. And then if both the groups have the exact same response, then it doesn't do anything. If there's a difference in response, then you can decide if the supplement actually does something. And as far as most supplements are concerned, something like 86% of those that are currently marketed, that includes vitamins, do not do what they say on the tin.
Okay, let's focus in on that. A daily multivitamin. You always see these like, for men 50 and older, the perfect combo, whatever. That you're telling me that you're just kind of taking nothing. It may not hurt you, but it's not doing anything, really.
It's not that you're not taking anything. You are taking something that if your body does need it, you are giving it extra so that it can absorb it. So in terms of a multivitamin, it's not necessarily going to be dangerous. Most of the things that are coming from a reputable source that contain trace minerals and small amounts of the things that you need. If it says it's got 1,000% of what you need, then yes, that's a waste of your time and your money. But
I don't trust anybody who goes over 100. I just don't.
Well, but you could do 1,000%. The way that this system works, you're talking about recommended daily allowance, and that's actually a fixed number.
Right.
So 35 grams.
Right.
Well, 1,000% of that would be 3,500 or 3,500. So 350. Anyway, I'm not doing math right now.
No.
I don't have my scratch paper in front of me. Yeah. Anyway, so you could do 1,000%. It would happen.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Okay.
But all that's happening with that, especially if it's a water soluble vitamin, is that you're going to urinate it right back out.
That's what I'm going to ask. It just goes straight to your body, right? You're not going to hang on to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The water-soluble vitamins, if you do not need them, you do not absorb them. And so we usually talk about vitamins as a great way to make expensive urine.
Wow. I never thought of it that way. You need your high-quality, expensive pee. We got you covered with the that whole market. But, I mean, they're obviously they market them in a certain way. I'm no sucker for marketing. I can see right through most of that stuff. But if I'm feeling a little off, down, tired, whatever, I mean, is it reasonable for people to pick up a multivitamin and think maybe this will help?
There is absolutely no harm in trying because, like I said, a reputable multivitamin isn't going to be dangerous. The key here is it going to give you some level of benefit? And if so, is there a risk of danger? If there's no risk of danger and there's potential for benefit, then sure, do it. If there's no risk of danger and there's absolute benefit, absolutely do it. Okay. If there is questionable benefit and significant harm, then you shouldn't touch it, right?
That seems very logical to me, yes.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
All right,
exactly.
So are there any common supplements that people are buying a lot on the shelves that are more harmful than helpful, just naturally out the gate?
So there are roughly 23,000 emergency department visits each year for some type of supplement adverse effect.
Nationally here in the States.
Nationally here in the United States. Okay. This is the data from the AMA from a couple of years back when they did a big study on looking at supplements. Yeah. That's usually the supplements marketed for weight loss, for sexual enhancement, and as sports supplements.
They got Viagra most people in there, eh?
Well, and here's the thing. You say Viagra. If it's marketed as a sexual supplement or sexual enhancement, a lot of times what they will do is they will buy cheap Viagra from another country, cheap sildenafil, which is the drug that's in Viagra, and they will put it in their supplement without putting it on the label.
Oh.
Not only is that illegal, it's incredibly dangerous because that medicine can absolutely interact with a lot of other medications and cause significant heart problems.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, they're trying to sell Viagra without selling Viagra and trying to make money off of a product that already has a patent and a way that it is regulated, and it is actually a true medicine regulated by the FDA. Not only is that illegal, but it is incredibly dangerous.
That happen a lot? Is that a common thing?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Something like 60% of the stuff you buy at the gas station, if you do mass spec on it, it has like the stuff that is for enhancement, it has sildenafil in it.
Yeah, see, here's the general rule at a gas station. Treat everything in that gas station, with the exception of sealed boxes from brands you trust. Treat them all like the rolling hot dog that's been there since Thursday.
Yeah.
Because none of that is good for you. I promise. Don't trust a little blue bottle that says, Uncle Larry's fast boner, street boner, or whatever. Avoid that stuff like the plague.
I don't think I would trust that even if it didn't have
No, I feel like the marketing may have doomed them to begin with. But okay, so it makes sense to me from that perspective, and like energy shots and things like that. Though they seem that all of that seems as iffy as it sounds. But is it possible for, say, me to take too much vitamin D or too much iron supplements? At what level or what point do I know if I'm even doing that or not?
So most people don't, especially men, don't need iron supplements. If you're not deficient in iron, you can actually bank iron in the liver and it can damage the liver. So taking an iron supplement, if you're not deficient, if you don't know that you're deficient, is going to cause significant harm. So it's not worth it. Okay. So taking an iron supplement without knowing that you need it, without talking to a doctor, having the laboratory values to check for blood counts and iron counts, if you don't have that information, then taking an iron supplement can actually be dangerous. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, which means that when we take it in, we don't just urinate it right back out, it gets stored. And that's true for A, D, E, and K. All four of those vitamins are stored in the fat.
I always forget there's a K, by the way. Always.
Well, so vitamin K is actually incredibly important for blood clotting, but you definitely shouldn't take a supplement for vitamin K unless a doctor tells you to, because vitamin K supplementation can increase your risk of blood clots, and that's a dangerous thing as well.
Yeah, I don't want that. I don't want any of that. And then Special K, that cereal, that's nothing. Is that about that vitamin or okay?
No, it's for Kellogg.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that until you said it, and now it's so obvious. It's actually painful for me. Oh my gosh! All right, but if
if
you mentioned
vitamin K in that, and then you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you mentioned that the iron thing. Mm-hmm. Male versus female, women take iron supplements quite a bit. Why is that? Just from a baseline, what's the reason for that, and why is it okay for them and not men?
So most women, people that have periods, so it's not all women, but people that have periods will have blood loss once a month, and that's going to decrease the amount of available blood cells. Iron is the primary component of hemoglobin, which is the part of our blood cells that carries around oxygen. Mm-hmm. So when you have to replenish red blood cells, you have to use a bunch of iron. And so most women that are of menstruating age, or people that menstruate that are of age to menstruate, have a higher risk of developing anemia, and anemia is oftentimes going to be iron deficiency anemia in that case. And so replacing iron at that point is useful. Most men don't have a source of blood loss, so they're not turning over their red blood cells any faster unless there's a problem. It does happen, but it's usually related to a disease process.
Or they're being dumb and like putting leeches on or something dumb like that.
Or getting rid of blood, or not taking in enough dietary iron. It can happen more in vegetarians and vegans because they're not getting good sources of iron like dark green vegetables. If you're a vegan that doesn't like broccoli, a lot of times, or like dark green vegetables, you can have some issues with iron deficiency as well.
So the bad blood thing back in the day, where it'd be like, if you did bloodletting, it would reset your blood, or you get fresh blood because you let the crappy blood out. That's all disproved now, right? It's all garbage.
Mostly junk, yeah. I mean, there are parts of it, take this with a grain of salt, there are parts of it that were based in some scientific information, observation, but they are not, it's kind of like getting there by accident. It's the stopped clock rule. It's right twice a day.
Yeah. I hate that rule because it sticks. It works. All right. So stay away from trying, like if your doctor says, hey, we got to boost your D, do it the way they prescribe, and don't act like now for the rest of your life you need to take 10,000 BTUs or whatever what's the measurement? It's not BTUs.
IUs.
IUs.
BTUs are a unit of heat.
That's right. And what is the other one? There's pounds per square inch I always think of. So PSI. I always think of that.
PSI. Yeah. There's
Anyway.
all kinds of abbreviations for stuff like that.
But if they just follow what they tell you, though, right? They say do this, and if you do that, then you're in a safe zone. Don't go assuming that. Well, now the magic pill of my D pill is going to save me for the rest of my life.
Exactly. Yeah. No supplement is going to save your life unless you absolutely are deficient and need it. So there are exceptions to every rule. But in general, it's not the supplements that are going to do that. And in fact, we oftentimes absorb things better out of our food than we do from a supplement. Iron, the elemental iron that is in a pill, the iron pill, is actually iron filings. You could crush it up, run a magnet through it, and pull the iron filings out of it.
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, back in the day, in pioneer days, one of the things that they used to do for anemia is they would boil rusty nails and then drink the water off of it. That's actually true.
And it would work.
Because you're getting iron.
Because that's iron. I had no idea. I mean, I know the elemental metal, and I know it's all connected, but I just assumed. I don't know what I assumed, actually. Never thought about it before now. That's crazy. Boil up some nails, mother. Junior's lost some blood, I guess is what would happen, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it usually what happened was, especially after childbirth, a mom would be depleted of blood, especially if there was any kind of hemorrhagic kind of bleeding after delivery. And so that was a very common midwife kind of thing to do, was to boil some nails and drink the water.
Well, how true or fake is it then when I want to get to why these claims can be made without any kind of credibility? Like you just make these claims. It seems crazy.
Because we all decided that was how it would go.
I don't like it. It really seems so weird to me. But and I know it's different in other places. Not all countries do this. We love our freedom of ripping each other off. So we have to let some of that slide. But a lot of these supplements, let's take vitamin C, for example. The claim is that the more vitamin C you take, and supplements that use C as a key ingredient, will boost your immunity or your brain function or whatever. Maybe immunity is a good place to start because, your parents would always say, oh, you feel a cold coming on? Just take some vitamin C. We'll see if we can kill it. Or zinc is a common one you hear all the time. How much of that is malarkey?
It's not malarkey as much as it is just overblown. Does it improve function of certain cell types to have vitamin C around? Yes, they need vitamin C to function. So if you have that vitamin C, it's a building block. If you're going to use it, having more around is sometimes a good thing. Is there a diminishing return? Absolutely. If you have 1,000 units of vitamin C and you take that once a day for 5 days, you've probably had about 4,000 extra units of vitamin C than what you need. So it's just going to get urinated right back out.
Expensive urine, more of that pricey pee you're making there.
Yeah, exactly. It's also better to get that vitamin C from natural sources like citrus fruits and other things that have vitamin C naturally occurring. It's just like getting iron from those vegetables that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They're compounds that are more organic compounds, which are easier for your gut to digest. And so you pull them across more easily, so you actually get more out of it, so you get more bang for your buck. So in terms of having those extra things around, does it help? Yeah, it can. The problem is the over-reliance on things like vitamin C to, say, cure cancer. And that all started with a guy by the name of Linus Pauling. And so anybody that went to school in the 70s, 80s, and 90s probably remembers that name from high school chemistry or from college chemistry. Linus Pauling was a Nobel-winning chemist, physicist, who was a contemporary around the time, a little bit after Einstein. And there are principles in physics that are named after him, or chemistry that are named after him. And he was a very, very intelligent man, except he was really, really bad at biology. And so back in the 1960s and 70s, he moved to California, fell in with a group that decided that vitamins were going to cure prostate cancer and other bad cancers.
Great.
And said high-dose vitamin C was going to be the thing that fixed us all. And because he was a Nobel Prize winner, and he was a very smart man otherwise, everybody kind of started taking all of the stuff that he was saying and turning it into what is now essentially a $60 billion business. So the vitamin supplementation industry started with that cult. And you can actually read about this. If you go on the internet, there's all kinds of different websites. There's actually a pretty good documentary. I'll have to get the name of that for you.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
About Linus Pauling.
Yeah. Pauling. It's interesting. His name's really close to pollen, and pollen spreads, and his bad idea. See what I'm saying there, where I'm going? He spread his malarkey all over.
It's valid. It was kind of a cult that he was part of. So it's an interesting story that led to this massive industry now that is based on kind of junk science, pseudoscience.
And I kind of get how no company wants to get into this world, to this market, and immediately kill a bunch of people with their claims. because that's bad for business. And I get why we maybe decided in our open, free way to say, well, that's how we'll do this then. It's only when someone gets harmed, and people are, they are going to be motivated not to harm because the money is in not harming them.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if it means...
It's kind of like a virus.
Yeah, a little bit like
the virus that kills its host is not good at spreading itself.
Exactly.
If it kills your host immediately.
So what it does, it gives us this sense that, this stuff is fine. It's fine. But it's not actually doing much. It's not so much that it's hurting us as it just really is it helping us. And you can get away with a lot when there's caffeine in something, because caffeine does indeed create, a sense of
euphoria,
energy, those sorts of things. So you can make your little boosters and go, it wakes you right up. It's got L-theanine and 14 other flowers and some guy's eyebrows. But then when you look at the back, it's like, and 900 grams of frickin', caffeine, which would kill you. But you know what I mean? Like, it's usually comes down to the caffeine in those things. I've never seen one that came in a little bottle, like a 5-hour energy drink style thing. There's now 1 million copies of that. Never seen one that didn't have caffeine.
Well, and they also hide caffeine in those. They'll use things like L-taurine, and there's a couple of other compounds that get converted to caffeine once you digest them. Great. And that's how they get around labeling it as having certain amounts of caffeine.
That's annoying.
It actually has caffeine precursors. And so things that say they have like 150 milligrams may actually have 200 or 300, and 300 is the max in a day for a human being to be safe.
That seems deceptive.
It absolutely is.
I don't like it. But we've accepted that, I guess. As a society, we're cool with it. All right.
Yep. And part of it goes back to this trust of authority, right? This person, well, you don't know more than me. This is nature. This is natural. This is how our body works. We talked about that already. I can use this thing without having it hurt me because it's coming from nature. And that concept, there's all kinds of different conjecture about where that came from or when it started, but it has been a very dangerous thing that's been going on for a long time, and it's led to a lot of the things, just like last week when we talked about the vaccines. It is leading to a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation because, well, this person, they have some level of authority and they're talking about something that sounds good to me. It matches what I think nature should be. And so that's what I believe. And so culturally, we've made that the norm. And that's I think more why we have this idea of, well, it has to hurt somebody before we care about it, because it's natural. It's coming from a plant, or it's coming from a fruit, or it's coming from a flower or whatever. That kind of thing, that kind of thinking is somewhat harmful.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's some stuff that grows out of the ground that'll kill you in 2 seconds.
Lots of it, actually.
You don't cook rhubarb right, you're done.
That's a great example.
That's natural. I don't know. People need
sugar in general. Most plant sugars that we eat are the problem with our sugar problems. Potatoes, rice, grains of all kinds. Those have tons and tons of carbohydrate. That's part of the reason why we have a lot of diabetes. So can you blame that? Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's part of a lot of it's our behavior, but it's a ready source of carbohydrate, and it comes out of the ground, so it's healthy, right? Fruit is healthy. Fruit is fructose. And so fructose is sugar, and sugar is sugar. Our body doesn't care. It absorbs one molecule at a time, and it has no idea where that sugar came from. That sugar could have come from a Snickers bar. It could have come from a banana. It does not matter. It's the same sugar.
My doctor says eat lots of blueberries as an alternative.
Less sugar. They have less sugar in them. As far as fruits go, that's kind of one of the safest fruits.
Yeah. And they get stainy, though. You got to be careful. All right. Can supplements interfere with the prescription stuff you've got, though? If I'm taking heart meds or some other, I can't, cancer meds people are on or whatever, what are the risks with these supplements?
There are tons of supplements that are going to mimic a lot of the things that prescription medicines do, because a lot of prescription medicines were actually purified versions of the main ingredient in a supplement that actually does something. So, prime example, back in the day, in the East, they used to use, I say the East, in Asia, they used to use something called red yeast rice, which was yeast that grew on rice. And they would take that and grind it up, create a powder, and then take it as a heart medicine. Turns out that there's a compound in there that actually drops production of cholesterol in the liver. And we took that red yeast rice, we figured out what part of it actually helped people stay heart healthy, and we turned it into a drug called lovastatin.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So all of the statin medications, all of the statin medications like Lipitor and Crestor and all these medicines that you hear about, they are all derived from a compound that we got from that red yeast rice. That means that if you take red yeast rice while you're taking one of those statins, you're actually doubling up on your medicine. And that can be incredibly dangerous because high doses of that can absolutely cause muscle damage and other really bad effects.
Right. It seems obvious if you're a patient and you're supposed to take one a day or something. If you took 2, you'd be going, oh, crap, I took 2. But if you're doing it by accident, because you
never know until you start having problems.
Yeah, that's not good. I don't like that.
Yep. And that's actually...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's not... So that's a case of you may be doubling up, but are there other cases where a supplement may hinder a medication's ability to be effective?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like it can also enhance the effect of a medication. So St. John's wort can affect serotonin in the brain. And so if you're on medicines that affect serotonin, like SSRIs or SNRIs, the kinds of medications that we use for anxiety and depression and mood issues, those kinds of medicines and St. John's wort can absolutely interact. And now you've got extra serotonin that you don't need. And that can cause something called a serotonin overload. And if you've got too much serotonin, it causes serotonin syndrome, which is really bad. It causes high blood pressure, high heart rates, increased temperature, what we call malignant hyperthermia. It's actually a pretty dangerous thing. Yeah. So it's enhancing the function. Yeah. There are other things that can, especially when you're on medicines like Coumadin or warfarin, which is a blood thinner. We don't use it nearly as much as we used to because we have some better options these days, but folks that don't have the insurance coverage for the more expensive new drugs still use it a lot. And so that medicine, that warfarin, the Coumadin, that medicine is very sensitive to all kinds of things, from foods to supplements to everything else. And so there are lots of medicines that can and supplements that can affect how well it works. So it kind of depends on the medicine. It depends on what it's doing in the liver, what the supplement's doing in the liver. If it binds, certain metallic supplements like magnesium or iron can actually interfere with certain medications, bind to them and make them inert. Yeah. So you don't want to take a lot of that stuff at the same moment as well.
Right. Now, I know this is a bit of a steer off into a different territory, but when you get antibiotics from a doctor and you're on that run of 10 days or whatever it happens to be, they tell you to stay out of the sun. What is that about? Why is that a thing? I mean, I already burn and it's already bad even when I'm not on anything, but my doctor warned me so hardcore when I had strep a few years ago, just said, do not go in the sun during these 10 days. And I'm like, really? It's that bad? He's like, oh yeah, just stay the crap out of the sun. What was that about?
So, there are certain medicines that are going to increase sensitivity to the sun in terms of redness and sunburn kind of response, as well as kind of just a what we call an actinic reaction or a sun reaction. Kind of like having an allergy to the sun. Not quite. Don't quote me on that because it's not exactly the same thing. But the idea is you get a skin reaction because of that compound being present in your system. So it's not technically an allergy kind of thing, but it has a similar kind of function.
Can it just, does it increase the chances of skin cancer or any of those things? It
increases the chances of sunburn.
Okay. Which could be, you could tie too much sun exposure.
The more times you burn. Yeah, exactly. The more times you burn, the more damage is done to the skin.
Yeah. You notice as you get older, this is just a thing I noticed, that this side of my forearm, I got all these moles. It's fine. Little, freckly kind of business going on. But you look underneath at the nice underfish here, you got nothing. Like it's just as clear as a baby's butt. And that's just because this side sees the sun and this one doesn't, right?
Yep, exactly.
Lame. It makes me wish I wore a muumuu my whole life and just never got any sun, but that would also be weird. You need sun, right?
Well, just think about truck drivers. You could tell, almost tell a truck driver when they walk in the door because one arm's sunburnt and the other one's not.
Yeah,
one arm's like aged.
Yeah, you see some of them where half their face they look 68 and the other half they look 22, and it's
absolutely.
It's like, dude, put something on that window.
Wind the window up.
All right. So here's a good one. What do you look for? If I'm in a drugstore, I'm, just at a over-the-counter type situation, and I'm looking for stuff that won't interfere, that is good. On that label, am I looking for certain things that are going to help me as a consumer not make some of these mistakes?
I would have said before I read this report that I was looking at before we had this discussion, I would have said look for something that is made in the United States because our regulations don't extend outside our borders. So if something's imported, we have no idea what's in it.
Yeah.
But it turns out that trying to look at what year, 2017? Yeah, 2017, the FDA inspected 656 different production facilities and over half of them failed.
Oh! Half? That is not an acceptable percentage. That's bad.
So the answer to your question is no, there is not an easy way to tell what's safe and what's not.
So it really does come down to it's a little bit of a gamble. If this brand has been good for me, I'm trying to think of a good brand that I like.
Nature Made, I think, is one of the ones that does a lot of stuff in the United States, especially like Walmart. I think that's one of their brands.
Yeah, I have. I think we have some. I thought I had one down here, but I think I have some Nature Made yellow one.
Yellow and green.
Yellow and green, and is it just a matter of that's the one I chose, so I got lucky? And
yeah,
those are
probably
okay. Gosh, dang it, that seems so dumb to me. I mean, there's no simple answer to why we think that it should be okay until someone gets hurt, with the exception of obviously FDA approval has to happen on certain classes of drugs, right? It's not like
for actual medicines.
Yeah, for actual medicine. It's not like some biotech company can come out and go, "Hey, we're pretty sure this thing will help your back feel better. Let's just go for it." And then if someone dies or has a horrible side effect, oh shoot, well I guess we'll go through the trials. It doesn't work that way, right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, it gives me some hope or some comfort.
Yeah, for medicines, like I said, it's the exact opposite. They are assumed to be dangerous until they are proven safe.
Right.
For the supplements, they are assumed to be safe until they are proven dangerous. And that's a slippery slope when it comes to, what do you mean by dangerous? Is it going to hurt everybody? Is it going to hurt one person? If you have 50,000 people that take it and one person gets hurt, that seems unacceptable to me, but is that unacceptable to the people that are, the other 49,999 people?
Yeah, good point. I remember the heady days early in the internet where I went, oh, this is going to be great because things like this will have the collective knowledge. The sources will all be immediately available. You know what I mean? Like, part of me actually thinks, again, it's a stretch to say this, but AI-based LLM models are better at sifting through the knowledge quickly and knowing what is supported by peer review and some of it, not entirely. It's like early days of Wikipedia. It's like, people are editing this. Do we really trust this? But it turns out at the end of the day, like today, I'd take a Wikipedia article almost over any other source of information. So I'm not saying that LLMs will get there to that level of trust. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But at the very least, they sift better than us having to look and look and look. Like when people say do your own research in whatever context they mean it, holy crap. Do you even know what that means? Like, that's an insane thing to say in 2025.
It's physically impossible. And so even with an LLM, you're not actually doing research. Research would be looking at, it's kind of like taking that word and using it improperly, like we talked about with health.
Right.
The idea that you can do your own research is next to impossible, because unless you're going to recruit 350 friends and take half of them and give them a supplement and half of them give them something that looks like the supplement but isn't the supplement, and then see what happens, you're not doing research.
Right.
You're just reading somebody else's research.
Sure. Yeah.
So those are different things.
And then knowing and being able to quantify the person's research you're reading as good and understand it exactly, or understand why it's good research versus why it wouldn't be. Like, we don't have those tools. No one's trained for that unless you are the people doing it.
So, and LLMs are not good at it either.
No, I mean, they're not. I have hope about it because I just need to have hope about some of it. And the one hope I have is that the problem is it'll never be a thing. It'll always be something controlled, a body of knowledge controlled by an entity of some sort. And by that, I mean the company who built that particular model, or even if it's open source, who's controlling the bit of it running on the server that they want me to have access. You know what I'm saying? There's no universal knowledge monster that is going to just be up there going, it doesn't matter what any of your preferences are, it doesn't matter what the money is, it doesn't matter any of those things. I am the ultimate source of it. I don't think that ever happens, and the problem with that is obvious. But I do think at some point we get to a place where it's better, and maybe it's tools specifically for the medical industry, but these tools will refine to a place where the reliability is much higher and way less hallucinations, and real information can be gleaned.
I agree with that.
I hope so.
I think we're on our way there. I just don't think we're there yet. I think the biggest concern in terms of science and in terms of medicine is a lot of these models are trained. Basically they're picking the next word that came after this word, and when looking at statistical models, those are based on a lot of data from the internet. And one of the things that the internet is really great at is hosting really bad junk science, especially about medicine.
Yeah. Has no problem.
So that's
and
why
then
a lot of the
parroting that
problems
stuff on sources like YouTube and social media, where everyone they have fans who believe everything they say, and that's very complicated.
So that's the data that this model is trained on for things like any of the OpenAI stuff. And so we really have to take anything it says with a grain of salt, because it's not doing science. It's not looking at whether or not this has scientific validity. It is looking at, does this match what I have seen happen 1,001 times instead of 995?
So to sum it up, are there things on the market right now that I could buy supplementary to my diet or whatever that are straight up harmful, full stop? Like they are just bad for you, and the results are known to be bad, but yet they continue on, no interference from the FDA or any other regulatory body, and they just skirt these regulations. Like, is there a thing like that we could warn people about and say, don't buy such and such brand, or stay away from this particular, thing, or any of that?
No specific brand, but the three things that I mentioned earlier: weight loss, sexual enhancement, and sports supplements. Those three things you pretty much should stay away from at all costs, because they are not only part of that billion-dollar industry, but the drive to make that money means that they will do anything to get there. So they are putting things into those that are potentially harmful, and especially over long periods of time could have significant deleterious effects. They could potentially kill you. A lot of the dietary supplements have things like phentermine, which is methamphetamine. And so that is absolutely something that you don't want to be taking without having a doctor monitoring your response, as well as making sure that you're not having any kind of untoward side effects or issues, especially blood pressure, heart rate.
I know a lot of people are on testosterone, some male friends who are on testosterone that definitely don't need it, but they want it because they think it's, and in some ways they do get the results they're looking for, but they're going to beef up, or they also are losing their hair, which I think is kind of funny. But though that seems dangerous to me, because you're messing with the very hormonal base of your body, and you mentioned heart issues and blood, and I don't know, it just seems like it has an effect on a lot of things if you're artificially boosting that stuff. And I'm not talking about people with like really low in the basement testosterone, where you need some small amount, 20 milliliters a week to kind of get somewhere.
It's usually 1 milliliter a week. 20 milliliters a week would kill you.
Is that a lot?
Yeah.
Maybe it's
so 1 milliliter is usually going to be 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate, which is the one that we use most frequently.
Gotcha.
But there are different, it kind of depends on which testosterone you're taking, and there's all kinds of different stuff that goes into that. All that to say, yes, supplementing testosterone when you don't need it does increase risks in some cases, especially in terms of blood clotting and heart attacks and strokes. Those risks are not nearly as significant as we potentially thought initially, based on some studies that were done in the last 10 years or so. Yeah. But it is still significant. It's still enough that we have to be careful.
You probably have patients who come in low testosterone, you have to give them a low dose and that sort of thing. Yeah. That's normal, right?
Yeah, it happens. The biggest thing with low testosterone that we want to treat, that is actually effectively treated well when we supplement it, is low testosterone can actually cause anemia, like we were talking about at the beginning with the low red blood cell counts. So if that happens, then supplementing testosterone is the best way to get that blood count back up, and that's important. That's actually a very important thing.
Where does that come from? Other dudes? Are they squeezing other dudes out and getting their testosterone, or how do you artificially make it? Or I've never asked this question of anybody, but where's that coming from? Because I'm a little freaked out about it.
So I can only answer for a couple of pieces of that. So I'm going to say I don't know, but let me look it up and get back to you for the whole. Like to make sure that I'm telling you something that is exactly true. Sure. But a lot of it is synthesized artificially.
Okay. I figured we got some of that way, but some things, I don't know. I like insulin. I don't know where that's coming from. Is that people?
So that is absolutely created artificially. And it used to be that we got it from grinding up pig pancreases, but we stopped doing that a long time ago.
Oh, gross. I mean, gross, but if it worked, I guess, hey. Well,
it was the only thing we had, and it saved lives. So from that standpoint, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But nowadays, we can do it without all of the risk of porcine illness. So if you get an illness from a pig because you're taking pig insulin, that's not a good thing.
Oh, would that happen? People would get...
Absolutely.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, progress, everybody. We've made a little bit in history. Well, all right, then. This is fascinating stuff. Any final advice, word of wisdom, anything about where where we're at with these and what people should just look out for or do.
Eat vegetables.
Yeah.
Drink water.
Yeah.
Have some lean meats every once in a while if you're not averse to meats. There is no harm in not eating them, but having them can give you some good nutrients. If you feel like you're getting deficient in things, talk to your doctor about looking at potential deficiencies. There aren't a ton, but looking for things like anemia if there's a concern for anemia. If you've got fatigue or you're having other symptoms that you're concerned about, have a discussion about it. It doesn't mean that there's a deficiency, and just trying to fix the deficiency isn't necessarily going to help. But there's no harm in taking a multivitamin if you want to, and steer clear of the aisle that has all of the sexual enhancement and sports supplements and weight loss drugs, weight loss supplements. Steer clear of that aisle.
Fun side story. I was in Las Vegas for a concert a couple of weeks ago, and we were at the CVS right there on the Strip across the street from the Wynn Hotel. So it's just right there. And a lot of the stuff there, like alcohol, very easy to get and grab and take and buy if you want, or, all the other items, water bottles, all the stuff you'd buy at a convenience store like this. And they had a pharmacy back there and everything. But the one thing that cracked me up is they had that aisle you're talking about, sexual enhancement aisle, which in this case included all of those kinds of over-the-counter drugs that are supposed to help, plus condoms, everything else you can think of, all in this locked case. Like it was locked down, this thing. You had to have two people come over and use two separate cards to bring the thing in. I watched them do this for this dude who was there, and I thought, why? What was the deal with this? And then it hit me. They can be abused, right?
Yep.
Like people running around going, I'm in Vegas. I got the biggest erection you've ever seen. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I assume that's what people are doing, but I don't know.
You could also slip them into somebody's drink, like other drugs that are not necessarily used, that are used for nefarious or dangerous purposes. It could be used to abuse another person, and that's not something that we want to happen.
No, hell no. And Vegas not immune from such things. So
exactly.
Be careful out there.
Unfortunately, a common thing there.
Yeah, be careful out there, everybody. Well, that is going to do it for us this week. If you've got thoughts and feelings on the supplement world, if you're in that world and you've got now, but wait a minute, or whatever kind of reaction you have, we're open to all of it. Send us all that stuff. You can find it at our website, themedical.show. There you'll find links to go and leave voicemails, text messages. You can email us directly on the website itself. All that stuff. So please go do that. That's themedical.show.
Hey, you got it on the first try.
Can you believe it? I finally got there. Like I no longer need assistance when trying to say our own stupid website, which is it's an incredible URL, but it's when things went top level that weren't .com, .net, .org, I struggle. I'll admit it. Maybe I need a supplement. Just kidding. I don't. That's going to do it today. Thank you guys for listening this week. We love your feedback, so please keep that stuff coming. Once again, that is themedical.show. And that'll do it for us. Hope you guys have a fantastic week. We'll see you next week with more. We don't know what we're talking about yet, but it'll be something awesome. I can promise you that. We'll see you then.
Frog in pants. If you're looking for something froggy smooth, find more at frogpants.com.